Virginia Crosby.
Good afternoon, Mr Hollobone. It's a pleasure to speak under your chairmanship in this important debate. I'd like to say llongyfarchiadau, congratulations, and put on my record thanks to the UK Government for a budget that is good news for my constituents on Anglesey, it's good news for Wales, and it's good news for the UK. Before the budget was announced, the Finance Minister in the Labour Government in Cardiff stated that the Chancellor has the powers to ease the challenges being experienced by households and businesses and support those most vulnerable, including practical actions to support people with energy costs, housing needs and welfare benefits. This, the Chancellor delivered. The energy price guarantee kept at £2,500 and new childcare plans to help working-age people get back into work, with 30 hours free childcare for children aged 9 months to 4 years, in England at least. I understand there's still some doubt as to what Wales will do with their share of this funding, and hopefully the Minister will enlighten us in his closing remarks. A new universal support scheme to help disabled people who want to work to do so, worth up to £4,000 per person. Housing is a devolved matter. However, the Labour government in Cardiff could have used some of their £155 million underspend instead of always asking UK taxpayers for more and more money. And in the spring budget, I'm delighted that the Chancellor delivered way more for the Welsh people than the relatively low aspirations of Labour. Of course I'll give it.
Thank you very much indeed. Just because the Honourable Lady raised the matter of housing, and I would wonder that it is worth us considering the local housing allowance, whose perimeters are set by the UK Government. And does she share my concern at my constituent of Abertllefenni, who is facing now a £150 increase in her rent per month, because the landlords have increased the rent, but actually no more can be paid with the local housing allowance because that is set at a lower level, at 25% of private rents. And would she agree with me that this should be raised by Westminster to 30% in order to support people in private rental arrangements?
Virginia Crosby.
May I thank the Honourable Member for her intervention. The concern that I have is that Labour in Cardiff should be building more homes that people want and in locations that people want to live, and in terms of more homes for young people starting their way in life. But back to my speech. In addition to delivering the day-to-day support people need with the current cost of living crisis caused by Russia's illegal war against Ukraine, the UK Government has delivered hope, and it's delivered promise of long-term prosperity in Wales. And we need to grasp it with both hands and work together for the benefit of the Welsh people. We've seen what working together in a constructive way means for Wales. It means a free port on Anglesey, and with that 13,000 new jobs and £1 billion in economic investment. This budget is an example of how this Conservative government is investing in Wales and levelling up communities both north and south. Families across North Wales see that the UK government, rather than the Labour in Cardiff, is supporting the region with long-term investment and good quality jobs. In the Chancellor's budget, I was delighted that £20 million for the refurbishment of the Holyhead breakwater was announced. This investment in a vital piece of infrastructure is important if we're to keep Holyhead from flooding and to attract new investment to the port of Holyhead, the second busiest roll-on, roll-off port in the UK, and follows the announcement of £17 million from the Levelling Up Fund to regenerate Holyhead Town Centre. This funding will attract new investment and good quality long-term job opportunities for local people across the whole island. It will give Ynys Môn a new lease of life and turbocharge the island's economy. My island has one of the lowest GVAs in the UK, with high levels of temporary and seasonal work. And every year we lose young people who move in search of decent employment elsewhere. My dad had to leave Wales to find work, and these investments will ensure that other young people do not have to leave Wales. The UK government is investing to protect our island's communities and our Welsh language. But, Chair, it's the nuclear energy announcements in the budget that will really have the greatest long-term impact on the people and economy of Ynys Môn, and indeed across the whole of North Wales, a point highlighted when the Chancellor named Ynys Môn in his speech. Earlier this month, I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister, co-signed by 57 of my honourable and right honourable friends, asking the Prime Minister to push ahead with Great British Nuclear and to make new nuclear energy part of our green taxonomy. The steps that the Chancellor took in the spring budget underline this government's commitment to our long-term energy security and net zero, with energy independence and jobs in new nuclear alongside renewable energy production. This country can become a more prosperous and balanced economy. The budget was overwhelmingly positive for nuclear in the UK, with the launch of Great British Nuclear and the labelling of nuclear as environmentally sustainable in the green taxonomy. It was also great to hear the Chancellor's commitment for nuclear to provide a quarter of Britain's electricity. That means a massive ramp-up of new nuclear projects, the scale of which we have not seen for a very long time. But what does this mean for Wales? It means opportunity. GBM will make the delivery of new nuclear projects, including in Wales, much more efficient, enabling us to build vital new stations at a quicker pace than we have ever seen before. And that means more jobs and, of course, I'll get back.
I welcome the announcement by the government, belated though it is, regarding Great British Nuclear. But when does she think, or does she think it is certain? And maybe she'd like to give a date, if that's the case, when the actual go-ahead for nuclear on Wilra will be announced.
Junior Crosby.
I'd like to thank my honourable member for his intervention, and I would sort of say the last time a nuclear power station was invested in and built was under a Conservative government, and as my honourable friend will know, we have a huge energy statement tomorrow in the Chamber, so I wouldn't want to preempt what the Minister has to say. But what this actually means is jobs and investment into areas that are calling out for it, including in my constituency of Ynys Môn. What I want to see is good jobs for hard-working people supporting Welsh communities, and nuclear can deliver that. Wales can be a centre of energy innovation, and in the budget we learned of plans for a small modular reactor competition, and already there's a long list of companies looking at Wales to house these game-changing stations, helping not only to decarbonise the power grid, but also to decarbonise energy-intensive users in the heavy industry sector. We need to see these projects come to Wales, but of course we need to attract investment. Giving nuclear the green label will drive crucial investment. Nuclear has the lowest life cycle carbon intensity, lowest land use, and the lowest impact on ecosystems of any electricity source, according to the UN Economic Commission for Europe. And if that isn't attractive investment, I don't know what is. And Wales has a world-class sites in Wilfa and Trallsfynydd at its disposal. And it's essential that we make the most of those sites. It would be a huge opportunity missed if we didn't. And over the next decades, there's going to be a significant ramp-up of new nuclear projects across the UK, facilitated by Great British Nuclear. Wales can and should be part of these plans, and the budget was a big step forward, but there's much to do. So this budget really has delivered for Wales, but it's delivered way more than just the hand-to-mouth support that the Labour government in Cardiff asked for. It's paved the way for long-term sustainable growth and employment in Wales. It's paved the way for levelling up parts of Wales that have seen little interest or investment from Cardiff in the past 20 years. And it's paved the way for an economic revolution on Ynys Môn.
It is evident from the evidence provided by the Welsh Government that we are receiving substantially less in funding via the Levelling Up Fund than we were when we were a member of the EU. And the Minister for the Economy has quoted a figure of 1.1 billion. What does she have to say about that?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your intervention. That is simply not the case. And I will actually highlight in the way that North Wales has been treated by Labour. In the last 6 months, it's been deprived of one of the 2 bridges connecting it to the mainland. It's seen abject failures in the devolved health service and suffered over 700 job losses with the closure of 2 sisters in Llangefni. And whilst my colleagues from the other side sit there and complain about a budget, let's look at the action that our own Welsh Government, in cooperation with Plaid, has taken to support my already deprived community through these challenges. It's refused to compensate the businesses that suffered significant losses from the closure of the Menai Suspension Bridge, a closure which, I hasten to add, resulted from failures in its own maintenance programme. It stalled on funding a much-needed GP co-location in Holyhead, which had helped people who have struggled for years with a health board in and out of special measures. It could have stumped up the funding for some of those 700 losing their jobs to travel to another plant and continue for working for a few months from 2 sisters in Llangefni from their £155 million underspend. It chose not to. The only reason that my honourable friends from the other side of the House aren't happy is because they cannot face the fact that the UK government is delivering on its promises to the Welsh people in a way they have abjectly failed to do themselves. May I commend this budget and the difference it will make to people across Wales, and particularly in my constituency of Ynys Môn.